All right, everyone, this is the Polynomial Review screencast for review problems, summative review problems number 14 and 15. 14 and 15 are very similar, but they're also very different. Number 14 is a trinomial. It doesn't have any greatest common factor. There's nothing that we can pull out of all of these. So we go ahead and we're going to dive into that box method, make that box, and we ask ourselves, all right, the 6x squared here, or 6c squared, forgive me. 6c squared is going to go in that box, and the minus 5 right there is going to go in that bottom box. And when we multiply those together, we get negative 30c squared. So we look at that negative 30. Now we want two numbers that multiply to give me negative 30, but have a sum of negative 7. Now the numbers that we initially multiplied to get negative 30 were 6 and negative 5. Unfortunately, when we add those together, if you add them up, you get 1. We don't want 1, we want negative 7. So you start thinking of other numbers that multiply to give me negative 30. One would be if I multiplied 3 times negative 10. If I multiply 3 and negative 10, I do get negative 30. But what happens when we add those together? 3 and negative 10, they have a sum of negative 7. So we just picked a winner. That's the winning combination that we want. So we put a positive 3x and a negative 10x. It doesn't matter. Oh my goodness. Why am I writing x's there? These are c's, right? Sorry about that. All right, positive 3c, forgive me, and negative 10c. All right, now we have to pull out greatest common factors because what we're looking to do here is factor this trinomial at the product of two binomials. So let's figure out what they're going to be. All right, looking at this column right here, what do these have in common? Negative, both divisible by a negative 5. Notice how they're both negative, so I'm going to take out the negative and the 5. Then I looked at this column right here. What are they both divisible by, and what do they have in common? They're both divisible by a 3, and they both have at least one c. So that means one of my factors here is going to be 3c minus 5. Now we go and we look at rows. What does this top row, what do they have in common? They both have a c, and they're both divisible by 2. And this bottom one, they don't have anything in common. They both don't have a c. They're both not divisible by anything other than 1. So if you can't find anything, you just designate that 1. And that becomes our second factor. So number 14 factors as 3c minus 5 times 2c plus 1. All right, then we move on to number 15. I'm not going to lie, number 15 can be a little bit tricky. I'm going to move this other work a little bit to the side, all right? We move on to number 15 here. We're going to go ahead and draw our box. Now, number 15 is an interesting problem because technically it's 81a squared, and here's what I'm going to write in red, plus 0a minus 4. That middle term is a 0, and that's important for us to keep in mind as we do this problem. So when we are multiplying here, we're going to have an 81a squared, and you're like, man, these are going to be some huge numbers. Well, yeah, they're going to be big, and the negative 4 goes down here. So the 81a squared and the minus 4 both have a place. And when we multiply 81a squared times negative 4, we get negative 324a squared. Negative 324. And you might be thinking, how am I supposed to know all the factors of 324? Well, let me let a little secret. You don't have to know them all. All you know is you've got a positive number and you've got a negative number. And when you multiply those two together, you have to get negative 324. But you have another ace up your sleeve. Even though they have to multiply to give me negative 324, they have to add up to 0. And if they have to add up to 0 or have a sum of 0, that means that the number in this blank and the number in this blank have to be exact total opposites. That means that 324 has to be a perfect square for this to be possible. So you pull out your calculator and you either take the square root of 324 or you start playing around with numbers that multiply times themselves. Which one's going to give me 324? And lo and behold, you play around long enough and you're going to find out that 18 times negative 18 will give you that negative 324. You will find that these numbers in here need to be negative 18. There we go again with my x's. Negative 18a and positive 18a. And now you just made yourself a little bit easier job. Remember that if you got to get a 0 term in the middle, that these numbers right here would have to be opposites. All right, and that makes your job a little easier, even though with that bigger number. Now we start looking at these columns. 18a and a -4. The only thing they have in common is a 2. And this second column, 81a squared and -18a. Focus on first they have an a in common. And now think about the smaller number, the 18. What are some factors of 18? Well, there's not that many of them. 9 is the biggest one other than 18. And these are both divisible by 9. So our first factor down here, again, we're looking to factor this as a product of two binomials. The first factor is going to be 9a plus 2. Then we go to look at our rows. What do these two have in common? They're both divisible, similar to the other column here, the first column, 81a squared plus 18a. They have a 9a in common. The second or bottom row, they're both negative, so you take the negative out, and they both have a 2 in common, so -2. So my second factor is going to be 9a minus 2, and that's going to be our solution, our factored solution to this problem. Thank you, folks. I hope those are some tougher problems. I'm hoping that explanation does you some good.